The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Dom.
And Father Joseph Sund. Hey, Father.
May the 4th be with you.
Yes, we're recording this on the high holy day of May the 4th, soon to be followed by the Revenge of the 5th.
Or as we musicians refer to it as Dave Brubeck Day, because he did a lot of music in 5/4 time. So
that's right.
Oh,
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that too. My loyalties run a little toward Star Wars, but the Dave Brubeck reference is important for today's show. But we'll get to that in a second. Before we get to that, I want to tell the listeners about another show on the network they are sure to enjoy: The Secrets of Doctor Who. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Doctor Who. Before we do get to our main topic, I do want to get to a little bit of listener feedback on our recent show where Father Corey talked about putting Linux on an old Mac. And Jim writes in via email, "Hey, I really like this podcast. I've been a Linux user since 2004 and will not use anything else. I heard the comments that were made about Microsoft Edge. You actually can install Edge on Linux, but only on certain distros. I'm running at present Pop! OS on a 2011 MacBook Pro, and it's fairly quick. I did replace the mechanical hard drive with an SSD, which gave the laptop a lot more speed. I'm on gab.com and belong to a Linux group on there. This is where I found the article about installing Edge on Linux. It can be downloaded as a .deb package. I downloaded and installed Edge without any problems. I checked Edge out for a little while and decided it wasn't for me and uninstalled it. I'm a Linux purist and I stay away from Microsoft software, period." All right. Thank you, Jim. That's great. So if there's one thing I know about Linux users, they're willing to try anything, even if they don't stick with Microsoft. But if it's a weird, fun computer thing they can do, they'll try it.
I do have a confession to make today.
Oh, it's confession time, Father. Bless me, Father, for you have sinned. What is your confession?
I am recording on a Windows 11 computer today.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no.
That is quite the confession.
11.
Also, I'm making a backup recording on my end, so we're safe.
Okay, good.
So, excellent. And we've had some really good discussion about Linux on Macs in our Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. Listener Rick has installed I think Ubuntu as a dual boot on an old iMac. He's had a little trouble. We've been talking about it back and forth, or not me, but the more knowledgeable members of our community about this sort of thing, Father Corey and others. And it sounds really interesting, really cool. And I am going to do this. I have an old iMac sitting nearby, and I am going to install Linux on it at some point soon. Really, the only thing holding me back is I need more desk space. I don't have any room for it, but we'll see.
I have a MacBook 2012, the same that our listener feedback had here, and I'm running Arch on that one, and it runs very well, solid state drive, and brings 10-year technology back to life. So
yeah, that was one of the great things about that episode, was just learning that, this 10-year-old computers can be given brand new life. You don't have to throw them out. You can keep using them. And they're useful. It's not just an experiment. You can use them for the things you want to do with the Linux operating systems on them. So,
and my next experiment is I have in the mail on the way right now a Microsoft Surface RT. That might be fun to try to get to work.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned in Discord when we were talking with our friend who is trying to get Ubuntu working there, part of the whole thing of being a Linux user is that you love challenges.
Or someone who does. If you can get someone to do it for you, that's the key.
I always said I preferred Windows over Linux because I like working on my computer more than I like working on my computer, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That's like what I've heard some people say about like some certain British sports cars. And
Yes.
having a regular car. I like driving my car as opposed to working on my car.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to our main topic because it's a big topic. I want to leave plenty of room for it because, Victor, you're going to tell us about, you're a musician and you're going to tell us about how to make music at home inexpensively without breaking the bank, without buying thousands and thousands of dollars of stuff, but folks can regularly do at home. So first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as a musician? And you've mentioned before that you've made and distributed music, but tell us a little bit about your music background.
Yeah. So, I took piano lessons as a kid, was in various like small, jazz quartets and stuff in my teenage years. But, around maybe 91 or something, maybe even a little bit before that, a friend of mine and I built a MIDI interface for our Commodore 64, and I hooked that up to a Casio keyboard we had at home. And suddenly I was like playing music like from my Commodore 64 through the Casio keyboard. And I thought that was the coolest thing. So from there, I had a Mac PowerBook 190, with the 4 megahertz processor, I think. And, had Opcode Vision Studio hooked up to some keyboards through, basically like the industrial MIDI interfaces at the time. But it was just really cool to me, the fact that, I could be a one-man band or, record, drum parts, bass parts, keyboard parts, all the music that I, could hear in my head, I could record using this technology. And it was clunky and it wasn't easy. And, it sounds, pretty silly today, like some old video game soundtrack or something. But, and since then, the technology has just gotten more and more accessible, more powerful. Following Moore's law, I would say, for what you get, it's a lot cheaper today. Think with the semiconductor shortage and stuff, some of the prices have gone up over the last year or so, I've noticed. But for anybody who's ever been curious about, hey, could I take some musical ideas I have and, realize them and then, share them, with family or friends or even the world, there's never been an easier time to do that.
When we start talking about this, who is this for? Who are we talking to? And how do we get started with this? What's the first step in all of this?
Yeah. So, this is really for anybody. You can kind of know what kind of musician you are or you aspire to be, whether you're a singer-songwriter, you like picking up a guitar or a piano and working on a melody and putting some, lyrics to that, or else you like, more electronic music and you're really interested in, making beats, that's a huge portion of music making nowadays is, those lo-fi beats that the kids study to these days. And then other people, I just want to compose or arrange really ornate orchestral parts. And then, you could have a band or your kids could have a band and you just want to record them and get that music out there. So, really there's lots of different ways you can come at this. The one thing I would say is, just speaking, from an artistic standpoint, is I spent a lot of like wasted energy trying to make music that I thought I wanted to make, that wasn't really the music that I enjoyed listening to necessarily. So I can say that whatever kind of music you enjoy listening to, that's probably the kind of music that you'd enjoy making the most, as opposed to, what you think you should be making or what you think might get the most views or the most listens. Just be, authentic to yourself.
And from a tech standpoint, where do we start?
Yeah. So, what's really great nowadays is that, tablets, cell phones, laptops, desktop computers are, to some degree, almost equally powerful when it comes to working the tech behind it. Years and years ago, finding a computer, that could record digital audio without a lot of dropouts or skips or breakups was, you'd have to spend thousands of dollars, and you typically only find them in, college media labs or something, or recording studios. But now, if you have an Android phone or an iPhone, and your Android phone is made by Samsung because they seem to have the best audio drivers. Apple's audio drivers are excellent for their mobile devices. You can download free $5, $15 app and hook up recording interface to it, MIDI keyboard to it, and you basically have a digital studio in your pocket there. That said, I definitely prefer using a full-size PC with dual monitors, just because as you really get into the arrangement and stuff, all of the instruments and effects you may be using, having the extra real estate and processing power does help.
So let's talk about some of the tools that we would use to make music. Is there free tools we can start with, free software tools? Absolutely,
yeah. So you don't even need to install any applications on your PC to just like noodle around. There's a couple that if you just want to start, just drawing notes, making loops, jotting down melodies. One that I've used in the past called Beatbox, and we'll put the link in the show notes. But it's a very simple tool. You literally just click with your mouse. You choose what kind of scale, what key you want to be in, and then just draw notes on a scale. And off you go. The kind of cool thing about that is that then you can export it as a MIDI file. So if you do have a more advanced music program, you can take these ideas that you've created just in a browser, while you're supposed to be working, maybe, and put them into a more full-fledged audio program. Audio Tool is another one. There's other ones that use, sample libraries and stuff, but just for like fun, I would say, Beatbox is a good place to start, and it's free.
Victor, that reminds me of, did you ever do ringtones with MIDIs?
Yes. Yeah, I did. I did ringtones. I did real audio. Dominic may remember. And this would be just about 20 years ago, Blog Tones, which I did a series
of.
For me. I did.
Yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah. So I did about 40 short. The idea was in the 60s, people would record these jingles, or they were called identitones. And so, NBC's Dun 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 was one. And so for a bunch of people who had blogs in the Catholic blogosphere, I did about 40 of these, and then had a real audio player embedded, that people could put them on their blog and stuff. That was like the very exciting days of like digital music, where nobody was really sure where the technology was going. And there were a lot of, really seemed like really good ideas at the time. But yeah, I
wonder where that is. I gotta have that somewhere around here. I would love to dig it up.
Yeah, I probably have it like 3 or 4 PCs ago, so it's in a plastic tote in the furnace room or utility room.
Well, that
someplace.
blog is still online, so it might even be in there. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah. So lots of fun things you can do if you're just like, oh, this sounds really interesting and really cool. You don't have to dedicate a large chunk of your life or a large chunk of money to just finding out if it's something that interests you.
So one step up from, say, the browser-based music making tools, what about standalone applications? Where do we go from there?
Yeah, so pretty much if you're interested in recording or mixing audio, at least from a PC perspective, you're going to want some sort of external audio interface. They used to be called audio cards. Now they're audio interfaces or boxes. And what these typically have is nowadays they're very good microphone preamplifiers that you can plug a microphone into and get really good audio quality, like better than CD audio quality, to your PC, smartphone, or tablet or laptop. And in addition, it has audio outputs that can drive a good pair of headphones or monitor speakers. So you can hear, with more fidelity what you're actually creating. Very important. But a couple brands that I really like, Focusrite is a British company. They've been making USB audio interfaces for a very long time. They're Scarlett with 2 T's. Range is very reasonably priced. PreSonus is another one that they kind of invented the, entry-level USB audio device. So they have some there as well. A lot of these are super portable. They don't require external power supplies. So if you do have a laptop or smartphone, you just throw this in your laptop bag, and wherever you are, you can just plug it right in, plug a microphone in, And, not just for, music recording, you can obviously record a guitar or vocalist with it, but, field recording, audio recording, even record your podcast when you're away from your desk as well. What I would recommend on that, though, is if you are getting into music production and portability is not a factor, get more inputs or audio outputs than you think you need at the moment, because you'll get another synthesizer, you'll have a friend who wants to come over and plug their guitar or their bass in, or you want to record a drum set or something, and it helps to have those extra microphone inputs as well. So that additionally, these audio interfaces come with audio drivers that are better than the stock Windows audio driver as well. So one of the enemies of the digital audio recording environment is latency, where you push a note on your MIDI keyboard and there's a few milliseconds delay, or worse, tens or hundreds of milliseconds delay. And if you're trying to record, keyboard parts with a virtual synthesizer, and we'll talk about that, it becomes, noticeable and really takes you out of the moment. So the audio drivers that come with these, audio interfaces really make things run a lot smoother.
Victor, it looks like that Focusrite and how did you say that?
Oh, PreSonus.
PreSonus. It looks like there's a significant price difference between them. Do you see a large gap of the quality?
I have interfaces by both. If you can buy Focusrite, some of their newer interfaces, the mic preamps sound a little bit better, I think, than the PreSonus. Both of them have really good driver support, so you don't have to worry about the technology being left behind anytime super soon. So I would say find something that fits the form factor and your budget. In terms of most things, you get what you pay for, but it doesn't hurt to if you buy if you buy small now. And need to buy something bigger, years down the road, not usually a problem, because that smaller audio interface you bought now, you can use as part of a portable setup or give it to your kid or something. And then, of course, if you're a keyboard player like I am, you're going to want a MIDI keyboard to record, keyboard parts or bass parts, or many keyboards nowadays have drum pads on them. So if you've ever wanted to try your hand at finger drumming on these velocity sensitive pads that they have, and a brand, there are a number of manufacturers of these MIDI keyboards. Two that I like because they offer a pretty good value price wise is Akai, which is if you've been making music for a while, you'd recognize that one. They've been around since the 90s making samplers and other things. They have a range of very small MIDI keyboards, and then Arturia, which is a French company. They actually make full-size analog synthesizers, but they also have a number of MIDI keyboards as well. Some of which actually have 16-step sequencers built right into the keyboard. So if you have an external synthesizer, you don't need your keyboard. You can build a little sequencer apart into your keyboard that you have, and then you don't need an external computer, which is fun if you want to do live shows and just have looping parts and stuff. But both of those, I have keyboards by both of those companies, and they're generally very good.
From there, we went. Well, if you're not a instrumentalist, but you want to have some vocalists on there, vocal work on there as well, microphones would be something you'd want to think about, right?
Yeah. So really, when you get into microphones, there's the microphone that you have, on your webcam or on your headset mic. And those are typically very small electret condenser microphones, which for the size and the audio quality you get out of them for something like, audio conferencing and stuff, very good. But if you want more audio fidelity, more dynamic, more frequency range to pick up more of, the character of the instrument or voice you're recording, the two types of microphones you'll be looking at nowadays are, large diaphragm condensers, which require an audio interface that can provide, phantom power to it, which is a certain voltage just needed to run the circuitry in the microphone, and most have that nowadays, or dynamic microphones. And dynamic microphones are less sensitive, generally speaking, than the large diaphragm condensers. They're better for drums, putting on, let's say, a guitar cabinet to record a amplified guitar part, or even like broadcast purposes, like recording a podcast. So what I would recommend is there's a lot of really good YouTube channels that review microphones. One I didn't put in the show notes just yet, but Podcast Edge, which is just the word podcast with the word with AGE after it, does a lot of really good microphone reviews. But there's other sites like audiotestkitchen.com where you can actually compare. If you're a tech geek, you can compare the frequency plots, and I think they even have like you can sample how different microphones sound on the same audio content as well. So but with any microphone, you want to find something that suits your voice. So having a local music store is great, where you can say, hey, I want to just try this microphone out for a couple days. But one company that is pretty forgiving, when it comes to that, if you just want to try out a microphone, have them send it to you, try it out and send it back. You could try sweetwater.com as well. They sell a lot of music gear and stuff, so they're usually pretty cool with that.
Yes, I've found them to be very helpful. They have people on call, on the call you could talk to, and they're usually musicians themselves and know their stuff pretty well.
Yeah, talk to Billy. So
excellent. Yeah, that's the thing, is like as a podcaster, you realize how different your voice will sound from different microphones. And I've got a Rode Procaster. Was it Rodecaster? They have two similar products, Rode Procaster and Rodecaster. The microphone's the Rode Procaster, and I've got that one, and I've used it for a number of years now, and I really like how my voice sounds on it versus the cheap USB mic that I used before. And it really, everyone's voice is different, and as we know, and how a microphone turns that into, most microphones start analog, right? There's air blowing across them. How they do that is different for different kinds of voices. So yeah, I never realized how big a deal it was, the different microphones. So excellent. So there are other applications. We talked about the browser-based ones. What about the other software that people can use?
So a big business out there is what's called a digital audio workstation, or DAW. DAW software. And these have been around, like I said, since the 90s, but they've gotten just more fully featured. And there's really been kind of like a split in the way that these, programs run. If you've ever used like a video editor or any sort of like, as they're called, like nonlinear editors or audio editors, in the past, you'll be familiar with software that kind of lays your project out left to right, on a timeline. You can think of a piano roll and a player piano, turn it 90 degrees. You see you start of your song on the left and the end of your song on the right, and in between you can record audio data, you can record MIDI data, which is basically just like a spreadsheet for music. It just doesn't contain any audio data itself, but it tells instruments, whether they're living within the DAW or external synthesizers, what notes to play, and then you can record that. So that's kind of the prevailing paradigm has just been, linear, start to end recording, different features you can put in there, automation of different parameters on your synthesizers and effects. And of course, which software you have, there's usually effects and instruments bundled in it. But starting, this is within the last, I would say, dozen years or so, Ableton Live has kind of come out with a different way of looking at it, where things are really more based on scenes. So you have scenes that contain, different, instrumental parts, and you can, basically create an arrangement of, a number of these scenes, and then quickly flip between, the scenes. So which parts are playing currently, you can flip very quickly. So if you're a DJ or something performing live, it's really good for that, because you can say, play this scene for 4 bars and switch to this one. Oh, the crowd didn't like it. Okay, going back to this one, and then go to the build up, and stuff. But it's become actually a really good way of creating music because you can, come up with these little short ideas, build them into scenes, and then, record those scenes as a full song arrangement. And about 5 years ago, a group of developers split from Ableton and created their own software called Bitwig, Bitwig. And it's been a really interesting piece of software to watch develop because it is a lot of, kind of new ideas in the audio recording environment. So all of these things have free demos usually, or inexpensive, ones versions where the features are kind of stripped out. But I can recommend Bitwig. I can recommend practically everybody who, was doing music production or wanted to be like a beats producer in the early 2000s got started with FL Studio. So, or Fruity Loops as it was called then. So that's also something out there that, and people still use it to great effect as well. So don't discount it. They've the development team has really kept it up to date. And the cool thing about that is I bought my copy in 2003, I think, and they have free lifetime upgrades. So every year I get the next full version for free. So that was a good purchase. But there is a free version, Cakewalk, which was a company based out in Massachusetts, Cambridge, I think. They, went out of business, got, acquired. I think they were acquired most recently by BandLab, which is a company out of Singapore. And they've decided to take the Sonar product, which was their flagship, hundreds of dollars product, and offer it for free. So it's still very much in that old paradigm where you have to spend quite a bit of time learning how to use it. But if you want like a full-fledged recording, application, you can check out Cakewalk, Sonar. But for me, I like using Bitwig just because it's very inspirational to me. It's fun. It's colorful. PreSonus, we mentioned them before, has a program called Studio One, which is very good as well. And then, but I find myself, when I need to do audio editing, using Reaper, just because there's a lot of customization you can do and a lot of shortcuts you can create. And it's just, if I have to do something quickly, I'll use Reaper, and that's another inexpensive program.
If you're on a Mac, you get GarageBand for free.
Yeah. And an excellent program that Apple has kept up to date and added features. So if you do have a Mac, you've either used GarageBand. If you haven't,
I have.
Yeah.
And I'm no musician.
Yeah, and I've done songs in GarageBand. It's a lot of fun. Some of their automatic instruments they have, and it's a great.
I love stringing loops together and just having fun with it like that. Just even if you're not a musician, that's the thing I want to say is, even if you're not a musician but you like music, get one of these apps that lets you kind of just throw a bunch of loops in there and string them together and just make something fun. And some of these apps will even, I think GarageBand does it. I haven't used GarageBand in ages. They kind of modify the loops and things as you put them in to kind of make them work a little better together, because you're a Neanderthal who doesn't understand how music works, and it's like, oh, this sounds actually pretty good. And so definitely have some fun. That's the thing, especially if you got kids, introduce them to it, let them have some fun putting things together, and maybe get them started in creating something good and beautiful like music, or something really awful like some other music, but
absolutely
introduce them to music.
GarageBand reminds me of when I was high schooler and you're really bad at guitar and you get the distortion pedal and all of a sudden you sound amazing.
Exactly. And like a long delay. Yeah. I'm Jimi Hendrix now. Yeah. No, and that is a really good point. I've been focused so much on the production aspect, but it is supposed to be fun. It's a hobby you're doing for fun, but like any hobby, you have to be careful because it can reach a point at which it's no longer fun anymore and it feels like work. And right. So like it's like woodworking or anything where or creating YouTube content or anything like that. And one thing that people have really, the kind of like the holy grail has been to go DAW less, or, I want to ditch my computer. I want to, ditch all my audio interfaces, all these big pieces of software I have. And I want to just, turn off the computer and make some music without a computer. And, and without a laptop too, or iPad or something. And so that's been the holy grail. And there are quite a few. And so a lot of, hardware manufacturers have sought to fill this niche. Digitact is a German company. They make, various sampling things that have like, MIDI sequencing built in, so you can record, external synthesizers. People build, huge modular synthesizers that, cost thousands and thousands of dollars. But one thing that I was really drawn to was Akai again. Back in it must have been the 90s, they created something called the MPC, which was I think it stood for Music Production Center. And it was like a little sampler with these drum pads on it, and house and electronic music production, producers in the 90s and early 2000s, hip hop artists, just bought these things up, dove into them, discovered, ways of using these, these little sampler music, audio devices that the developers never, intended. And Akai has kind of kept in touch with how people have been using their products, and has now released them as the MPC 1 or MPC Live 2. The Live series runs off a battery, has built-in speakers, so you don't even need a power supply or headphones. And it's basically a computer running, it's like an ARM type processor, probably running some version of, Linux or something. But on top of it is a really solid audio music creation environment where you can import samples, record audio, slice it up, assign it to pads, play it on the pads. It has built-in synthesizer instruments right on the device. You can use the pads as a, chromatic, or assign it to a different scale or key and just play it that way. So, and then basically, add effects and export your songs as complete tracks. So not cheap, but if you're the sort of person who's like, I just want to get away from my computer when I create music and I want to go sit on the back porch or something, and you have the means, definitely worth checking out. One of the things I like about the MPC product as well is that they have a really vibrant community, especially on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and type in like MPC 1 ONE or MPC Live, you'll see like tons of channels where it's just people making music on them. And that's fun to watch too, just watching people kind of, create stuff. One of my favorite channels is called Malo, MALO Beats. And it's, I think, a Portuguese guy who just makes lo-fi beats out of records he samples and stuff, and he walks you through the whole process, and it's really relaxing to watch.
So mindful of our time, I want to kind of jump to the end where we kind of talk about what if you've made the next great pop top 40 song and you want to get it out there for everyone to listen to. What are the options? I mean, do you have to get signed by a big record label?
No, and you probably won't, and you probably don't want to anymore, because
exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, the music, we've talked about this before on the podcast, but the music distribution landscape has changed radically. You have people like Bill Wirtz, BILLWURTZ, very talented musician, songwriter, makes his own little animated videos for his songs. He'll put something out there, and within a day it has 3 or 4 million views. That's not going to show up on the Billboard charts. It should, but and I don't know what that translates into in terms of dollars for him, but it keeps him making music. So yeah, just if you have something, it's free to create a YouTube channel. Get out your phone and record, blades of grass blowing in the wind, and then use whatever, Windows Movie Maker or iMovie or whatever, and put your music over that, footage, upload it to YouTube. There you have a music video, right? And it may take a while. You may get 3 views for your first 100 songs, but, after that you may get 20 or 100 views, you never know.
Right.
And then SoundCloud is another free space you can upload music to. But if you do want to make money and you aren't, monetized on YouTube, there are a number of services. CD Baby used to be one of these companies that would make CDs for you for like vanity projects and stuff. But they distribute your music to every streaming platform you've ever heard of and like a couple of dozen you've never heard of. Yeah, and you get your when somebody plays it, you get your half a cent or whatever, but they'll send you a check once you clear like $25. That's always like the big milestone. It's like, oh, did my music make $25 this month? But and then DistroKid, and they'll charge you, I don't know what it is now, like $40 to put a single or whatever up on all these services, and then it just stays up there. DistroKid is another service that I haven't used, but it's kind of like you pay a flat fee and then as much music as you can crank out. So if you're just cranking out beats and stuff and you're like, I'm going to, just spam the music stores with all of my which probably isn't like the most like artistic integrity thing to do. But if you just have something you want to get out there, that's a one way to do it. It's just, a flat rate for as much as you can possibly crank out, and then you pay them monthly or whatever. But yeah, so there's lots of ways now, to get your music on Amazon Music or Spotify or iTunes, anything you can think of there.
Awesome. Well, that is actually a great overview, and I appreciate you going through the effort to put that all together for us. There is lots more to talk about with music creation and in your tech, and I'm sure listeners have questions. If you do have questions, we want to hear them. You can send them to us, technology@sqpn.com, or visit our SQPN Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord and find the Secrets of Technology channel there and ask your questions there. We would love to hear from you. Oh, and hey, we want to hear your musical creations. So let us know. Share those with us. That would be awesome. Excellent. And so before we move on to our headlines, I want to share with you that we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Stephanie D., Henry H., Wojciech D., William M., and Andrew T. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. All right, our first headline of this week is about Facebook. Facebook doesn't know where your data is.
Facebook. What are we going to do with you?
Did you check the back of your closet? So this is based on a leaked document that came out that the Motherboard got a hold of. And with all the regulations coming out from all around the world, all these different countries and, conglomerations of countries like the EU about how these companies use our data and how they need to secure it. Facebook has got a big problem, which is that they have not done a good job of keeping track of where their users' data is in their vast systems. This is from the internal document. This is what it says. We've built systems with open borders. The result of these open systems and open culture is well described with an analogy. Imagine you hold a bottle of ink in your hand. This bottle of ink is a mixture of all kinds of user data, third-party data, first-party data, sorry, my Boston coming out, first-party data, SCD, something data, European data, etc. You pour that ink into a lake of water, our open data systems, our open culture, and it flows everywhere. How do you put that ink back in the bottle? How do you organize it again such that it only flows to the allowed places in the lake? You don't, is the answer to that rhetorical question. And basically Facebook's defense is, look, you can't punish us for not keeping the data secure because we've been so bad at keeping data connected to the individual users that we couldn't possibly be misusing it because it's gone everywhere. What do you guys think of this story?
This is my shocked face. Yeah. I mean, is anybody really surprised at this point with all the, this is like every year, like over the holidays, like when nobody would notice it, like clockwork. It's like, oh, Facebook, this third party company gave all your data away, or as long as Facebook was cashing the checks, I think they were okay with their policy of, limited data governance. But I mean, as everybody says, if you're using the product for free, right, you're the product, right? So I mean, your data is the product, and I don't I don't think anybody at this point can be surprised that, Facebook has no idea where your data is or how it's being used, because you don't have any idea where your data is or how it's being used.
Right.
The excuse sounds like, Mother, you can't possibly punish me for my behavior. I've chosen my friends badly.
Right,
exactly.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. That sounds about right. Yeah. I mean, there's no surprise here. Facebook, we've known for a long time, Facebook does not have our best wishes at heart. Our data, they look at our data as their property to do with as they will, to exploit. And they've treated it that way from the beginning. And now we're trying to put the genie back in the bottle, close Pandora's box after the fact. And it's proving to be impossible. I mean, that's essentially if that's another analogy they could use is Pandora's box. We opened the box. There was no regulation when they did it. It was free for all. And that's all gone now. The efforts to secure that data, that information. There's one privacy advocate from Ireland who says, it's a black and white recognition of the absence of any data protection. Facebook details how it breaks each principle of data protection law. Everything it does to our data is illegal. You're not allowed to have an internal data free for all. I mean, that's certainly an interpretation of it. I'd be curious to see how if the EU goes anywhere with that and tries to prosecute Facebook for this.
Yeah, or California too, because they have the same kind of laws now in California as well.
Yeah. I'd say if you're using Facebook, one, remember to use either containers in your browsers or private browsing when you're using Facebook. Yeah. And two, get their app off your phone right now because it's not doing anything good there.
Yeah, it's better than it used to be because at least on iPhones, because Apple has cracked down a bit on but Facebook used to do this thing where they would play a silent sound, so a sound with no data in it, to keep the app active in the background, which is why your phone's battery would die if you had the Facebook app on it. Apple did cracked down on that one about 6 or 7 years ago. But yeah, it's just it's just poorly programmed apps on top of it. I mean, sometimes some of it's malicious and some of it's just bad programming. You sometimes wonder, is it incompetence or malice or maybe both? I don't know. Anyway, this is turning into a Facebook bashing session, which is why I don't do a lot of Facebook stories because I can bash Facebook all the time.
What's the maxim? Never attribute to malice what can be attributed to simple stupidity or something along those lines. Yeah.
But if we keep bashing Facebook after the last episode that we had tech flops, I had to use a Microsoft product after bashing Microsoft so much. Yeah. So let's stop before I have to record our next episode on Facebook.
Actually, that actually came down this week. Was Facebook is abandoning their podcast product that they started offering last year. So they had this thing where podcasters, we could submit our feeds connected to our Facebook pages, and then they would post episodes where people could listen to the episodes on Facebook. And I was always like, yeah, sure, why not? It's another place for people to listen. I don't care. It doesn't hurt me. Except they never created an interface for admins of the pages to be able to look at people's comments. There was no way to see and respond. I could see that people were commenting, but there was no way for me to go and read those comments. Like, I couldn't even go in a private capacity because as soon as I went to my page, it flipped me to the admin section, setting. I would have to create a fake profile in order to even read the comments. It just, just don't get me started with how bad Facebook is in those regards. My new favorite maxim is play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and that's basically what Facebook has done. They've won stupid prizes. All right, moving on. Our next headline involves Apple, and they recently were getting some criticism for alerting developers that abandoned software, quote unquote, on the App Store is going to start to be removed. And it turns out this is not a new policy. They've had this policy in place for 6 years or so, I guess, as we record this. And what it is if an app has not been updated, has not received an update from the developer within the last 3 years, and does not meet some minimum download threshold, like hasn't been downloaded in that time more than some number of times, what they didn't say, then the developer will get an email saying, hey, we're looking at removing your app from the store unless you update it. And then if they still don't update it, it gets removed. Now, I'm kind of okay with removing abandonware from the store. I don't like seeing abandoned apps sitting there for people to potentially buy and download, and then it doesn't work. It isn't good, especially on newer hardware, newer operating systems. But on the other hand, there's such a thing as feature complete apps. It doesn't need an update. It has no bugs. It does what it does. But what do y'all think? Has Apple struck the right balance here?
Now with the update, there's things that I can be updating on the back side of my app and never need to be updating the app itself. And so I may have never updated an app, but the interface itself and the security of the app is being fully maintained on the back side of that app. And so that's where I kind of...
Yeah, from Apple's point of view, they don't see that. So and in fact, they're using update as a proxy for there's still a developer who's paying attention to this and maintaining it. That's really what it is. It's a proxy for something, another detail, another criterion, and it may not be a good proxy, as you point out.
And then what is defined as update? Can I just update the help section of my app? Can I just update a couple words? Right?
Yeah.
Or is it really?
That's a good point, because in the past, I've seen developers talk about how Apple kicking back an update because it was not a substantial update. It didn't which is also kind of boggling. You've approved the app in the past, and now you won't let me update it because it's not a substantial update. There's nothing in the article that we'll post a link to about that here, so I don't know if that's the case here. I've seen some developers talking about, well, I'll just change the wording on the splash screen or something like that, or update the copyright date or something like that, insubstantial on it, and to keep it alive. But even then, maybe you change the colors of the interface or something, and that should be enough. That's my guess, is that you don't really need to do much. Like updating your help section, that would probably count as substantial. So, it's a tough problem. What you've got millions of apps in the store. 90% of, maybe not 90%, but maybe 50% of them are useless. I mean, even ones that are being maintained, quote unquote, are bad apps. So.
And then remember, there's iOS apps. Just thinking of this, that if they came out 3 years ago, screen sizes and aspect ratios were different. And so there's also a quality control thing here, that Apple builds their app store as a walled environment that is about a user experience. And so part of it, they have a responsibility of maintaining that user experience on their phones, right? And so I blame them if I have apps that are really ugly on my phone, and the blame goes on them.
I've got a few apps that are very old that are like that, where they look bad and they don't even work right on my newer phone. They're very old apps that I've re-downloaded and tried to get running again. I'm like, oh, I remember this old app.
To throw one under the bus would be, there was that Catholic eye confession app.
Yeah.
That hasn't been updated in years, and it looks extremely ugly if you can even run it anymore. I haven't checked in a while.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk. I mean, we could talk about Catholic apps for a while, but there are a lot of Catholic apps that got shoveled out when it was the big thing, and they just died. They just got abandoned, and I think there's an anti-evangelistic, I don't know if that's a word, Or what I really mean. But it's a negative experience for people in their faith when they're trying to use these apps that have been handed to them to help them with in their devotional life or their sacramental life. And then they stop working. They get abandoned. They kind of get left by the road. It's like, if you're doing an apostolate like this, you got to commit to it, like long term, not forever necessarily, but you got it should not be a trial balloon, a fad. I mean, this is the thing. As SQPN, we've been doing podcasts for over 15 years, actually going on 17, 18 years at this point. We're committed to it long term. We're that's the sign. Anyway, that's a whole nother point. But I don't want to go off on a rant.
That's even on Android on the Google Play Store. The very first thing I do when I'm considering downloading a new or even purchasing a new app is the first thing I do is go into the more info and look at last update. And if it was more than about 4 months ago, I kind of give it a pass because it tells me that the developer's not really committed to it. Android could, come up with a new update in the next month or something, and the app would not work anymore. And so, I don't know. I like to know that, there's someone out there kind of shepherding the product and keeping it alive and feeding it.
I'm the same way with iOS. Like if they haven't updated since before the last major iOS update, I get a little leery of it. Or WordPress plugins is another one like that, where if I'm going to install a WordPress plugin, it's got to have thousands of users, tens of thousands or even better. And it's got to have been updated in the last few months at most, because Facebook updates come out all the time. And I want to know that thing is actively developed if it's going to be running on my website. Yeah.
And even WordPress gives you warnings about plugins, very similar to what Apple's doing here. About, hey, you probably should look out. There might be security holes in this.
Right. It's so old. It's not been updated. There might be security bugs. It's not been updated for the latest version of the WordPress, etc. Yeah, that definitely. So I want to get one more headline in before we get to our picks of the week, because this is a kind of a cool one. Amazon has announced that you will now be able to load EPUB ebooks on your Kindles. This is a long-standing problem with Kindle. So you kind of got to know a little bit of the history of ebook files, but back in the day, the original ebook format was the Mobi format, made for an e-reader called Mobi Pocket. Well, not the original, but the one that got the biggest traction back in the day. And there was a lot of stuff that was compatible with the Mobi format, and even up to recent days, a lot of stuff was in Mobi. And then Amazon built its proprietary ebook format on top of the Mobi format, and that's the KFX format that you see nowadays that their books are in. And those are proprietary and digital rights managed and locked down, that sort of thing. But you could, if you had the right software, get an EPUB, which is the most popular file format out there for that runs on everything else. You could convert it using various software. I use a cross-platform open source software called Calibre to do those conversions, and then you convert it into a Kindle format and put it on your Kindle. But now Amazon has finally said, we will actually do that for you. So you can't do it by connecting your Kindle to your computer and then doing the drag and drop. But what you can do is you can either use the email to Kindle, or the if you have every Kindle owner gets a special email address, and if you email a document to that address, it'll put it on your Kindle. Or you could use the Send to Kindle app that you can get for your Mac or your PC, and various, probably Linux as well. And that will also do it. And what it's doing is converting it. You already do that with PDFs. You could send them a PDF and they would convert it and put it on your Kindle. And now they're doing this with EPUBs. What do you guys think? Is this a big deal? Do you guys have Kindles?
I have a couple. I couldn't tell you where they are at the moment. Okay. I use my phone, and I have a Moon e-reader on it, which reads PDFs, EPUBs, text, whatever on it, and it has a really cool interface and stuff. But this would have been very useful to me maybe like 6 years ago. So
back in my early adopter days, I had to hang my head in shame as I adopted the Nook, Barnes & Noble's device. And this was before Amazon became the overlord of the world that they are now. And I had put my eggs in the basket of the Nook. I still believe that the Nook really was actually the better device.
Absolutely.
Just like Betamax.
It was a proto tablet. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're kind of going back into our last episode we had, right?
Yes.
The flops aren't always, and I would classify the Nook as a flop. But it was the better device, but it didn't, the library market out there, the buy-in of libraries, and just all of that, and the marketing, they didn't have it. And so I had to hang my head in shame when I ended up buying a Kindle. So while I like this, that all my EPUB books work, I'm still waiting for the day that Barnes & Noble will find a way to free my close to 100 Nook books.
Oh, yeah.
No one has come up with a way to convert them?
They are all proprietary and locked down in their format.
No Nook cracker. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Because the Kindle format's been cracked. You can use EPUB. You can use Caliber to convert Kindle books to EPUB format. I've done that for backup purposes. I've almost lost my entire Kindle library. Amazon's onto me.
Yeah.
The
Kindle
Echo was just
did the
Echo was just telling me it's coming.
Did the aid lady responded to you?
Yes. She says, this might answer your question. Backup can be used for archiving and restoring a backup. Thanks for that.
Well,
that's
nice.
That's a great tautology. So you can take the Kindle format and go backwards to EPUB. So that's interesting that you can't do it with a Nook. I'm all in on Kindle. All of my kids have Kindles. My wife and I are Kindle. I read every book I can as a ebook because I'm more likely to read them that way. I'm an ebook fan. I like the idea of the Apple Books system. I have some Apple Books. I never read them because I don't want to read books on my phone or on an iPad. I just don't. I want e-ink, e-paper, like that works better for me.
Yeah, Kindle definitely won the format war on that.
Definitely.
It's still hard for me though when I go on Amazon and the actual physical book with free shipping costs less than the Kindle book.
Yeah. That drives me crazy that the digital version costs as much as or more than the physical copy. There's no reason for that because the author's not getting that money.
No,
Amazon's getting all of that.
And so if Amazon really wants to, when they send me my paper box that is 6 times the size of the item that I've ordered and put this holding how green friendly they are. For all the Amazon execs listening to us right now, if you really want to be green friendly, make my ebooks cheaper than the real book.
There you go. Yes. There you go. All right, let's move on to wrap up with our picks of the week. And Father Joseph, I'm going to have you go first. What is your pick this week?
Oh, and my pick this week is called Standard Notes. And if you've listened to me, you've probably gathered that I jump back and forth through pretty much every platform there is, between the Apple sphere, the Google sphere, the iPhone, Windows, everything. And so I wanted a note-taking app, like my iPhone Notes app, that I'd be able to jump between platforms and be that. And I found Standard Notes. And positives about this: 1, you guessed it, it's open source.
Yeah.
2, it's just easy to use. And 3, the best thing, it's free. They do have a paid version that lets you use like Markdown language and do tables in it and all different sorts of things. But the free version has been good enough for me. And The sync between devices has been very good. And so just very simple, good note-taking app that can run between all your different platforms and works well.
Cool.
That is excellent.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of others out there like Notion and stuff like that, but this is much simpler and straightforward, it looks like. It's cool.
Yeah, I like the presentation on it. And I mean, obviously, I don't know who's reading your notebooks at that point, so probably any sensitive manifestos you might be writing, keep that to your,
end-to-end encryption.
Oh, okay.
Is one of the positives.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it has end-to-end encryption, which I'm not even sure if Apple's is doing end-to-end. I'm not.
Yeah, it is.
It is. Well, it's on iCloud, so it would be, right? Okay. Yeah.
Right.
If you're on iCloud, you're going to be end-to-end encrypted on all those files. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another positive note I forgot to put. I've been using it about 6 months now, and I've completely abandoned using the Notes app on my iPhone for this alone.
Yeah, I guess we'll know if this is really catching on when celebrities start posting their apology notes on Twitter using this. They type out their please don't cancel me. I've learned my lesson notes.
And then I've seen so many Apple Notes like that.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
That's good. And if the paid plan starts at $30 a year, which is not bad at all for a paid plan. All right, excellent. Victor, what's your pick this week?
Well, I was fortunate enough to pick up one of the newer models of Nintendo Switch, the one with the OLED screen. It has a larger screen, better battery life. And while I can't recommend, if you currently have a Switch, going out and upgrading to one, in my case, I was able to give the one that I was using to our younger kids. It really does. It has a much better screen. I mean, you're not getting better performance, it runs the same games and everything, but the screen is bigger, brighter, looks really good. And, the extra battery life is a plus as well. So they, when it first came out several months ago, you couldn't find one anywhere. They are available now for a little bit more than the price of a regular Switch. But again, if you have a Switch already, you can give it to a kid or someone pass it along and pick one of these up. And if you don't have a Switch, this is, it's the model worth getting.
All right. So your pick is the Nintendo Switch OLED model, or?
Well, yeah. And so whenever you buy a Switch or any game system, there's other controllers you need to buy. And the Nintendo Switch comes with the 2 Joy-Con, which are marvels of modern engineering in their own right. They have infrared cameras in them, and there are various, game builder programs that Nintendo has where you can lock the features and you can actually see what the infrared camera sees. It's pretty cool. They have gyroscopes, they have near field communication readers in them. But they're expensive. They're $80 a pair. They're a Pro controller, which is basically just a wireless, controller, is $70 or $80 usually. So there are some third-party makers, a lot of third-party makers making controllers for the Nintendo Switch, and one that I've had really good luck with is the PowerA Enhanced wireless controller, and they come in all sorts of different styles. And the cool thing about them coming in all these different styles is usually there's one style that's like $10 less than, kind of the base price. So for $35, $40, you can get a really solid controller for your Switch instead of paying twice as much for the Nintendo one. And kind of knowing that it's not just some, fly-by-night company, it's an actual pretty good controller there.
So my pick this week is the software update for 1Password 8 for Mac that just came out this week. They released it, the general release came out this week. I've been a 1Password user for ages, and I know that there are a lot of other password managers out there, but 1Password has done it for me for so long. This is a top to bottom overhaul. It's sleek, it's new. It uses the new Electron app technology, which allows them to do cross platform development a lot easier, which some have criticized. There's some good and some bad of the new 1Password 8. They have these new modal dialogues now when you're creating passwords. It used to be that I could, I sign into a website. It wants me to create a password. I put the password in, and 1Password would pop up a box and say, "Hey, did you want to save this new password?" And I could ignore it and submit the password on that website. and only replace the old password in 1Password when I knew that the new password worked, because some websites are really obnoxious about, oh, you didn't turn around twice and say please before creating a new password. Well, now it's a modal dialog, so I can't do that. So you kind of you're kind of on the hook a little bit, which is, I don't like that. I'm going to submit a bug report or something to their support on that, because maybe I'm doing something wrong or what, but I don't like that. Modal dialogues are bad. I think they're always bad. Just don't do that. The other thing that was kind of weird is it used to be that whenever I unlocked 1Password, I have a personal 1Password account and a work one for StarQuest. And when I would log into 1Password, it would unlock both vaults. Now I have to unlock each vault separately. It's kind of a pain. It's a little bit of a pain, especially if the thing auto locks after 15 minutes. I'm constantly unlocking it, so I'm not thrilled with that. But I may be doing something wrong, and there may be a preference I can set. One thing that's really nice is they have a new universal browser, they call it, which is if I'm in an app and not a web page, it can still recognize the app. So like when Zoom wants me to log in the app, not on a browser, it will pop up the 1Password dialog box and log in on the app for me. Yay! No more copy pasting from the 1Password app. So that's much better. I'm really pleased with that. And there's a whole bunch of other great updates and features. The Watchtower, which is it's a dashboard that tells you about, so many of your logins have bad passwords, and so many these are duplicates.
That's
and
good.
These can all have two-factor authentication turned on. So lots of really nice things like that in there. And I spent like an hour today just going through that and really cleaning out my vault of all the cruft and updating old passwords and stuff like that. So
cool.
I'll put a link to their blog post that talks about all the new features, and you can check it out. And they have a showcase that shows all the features, and you can check that out for yourself. But I am a 1Password fan, and I heartily recommend it.
Yeah, I bought into it. I bought it like, a dozen years ago for the flat fee and stuff. And I think it's they still honor that and stuff. So I'll have to go back, and I haven't used it in many years and stuff, and check it out.
One thing that I got to point out that other people have criticized is that you can no longer host your own file on your own
Dropbox.
Dropbox. It is now cloud only.
Okay.
Are they end-to-end encryption on those?
Oh yeah.
Good.
Yeah. But yeah, it is cloud only now. So the old product, I think like 1Password 7 will still work for a while. That's the one that you could still do it. But 1Password 8 is now cloud only.
Because that was one of their big selling points. Alternative, if you're someone who still wants to self-host your password manager, is Bitwarden. Allows you to self-host. You can also do cloud hosted. I do cloud hosted, I find it easier, but they do allow you to self-host still. So
yeah, the one thing I love about 1Password is that I have a family plan, and my wife and my kids and my mom, and we have a shared vault so that my wife has access to all the important passwords where anything to happen, or Netflix. So they can always.
That's a big
one. Always get
into
Netflix. Yeah, the vital passwords that we need to share. Yeah. But so that's one of the things I love about it. And for work, we have a team one, so the various members of the SQPN team can get access to things, and they don't have to send passwords in the clear and that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, 1Password is great. All right, so that should do it for us. We would love to get your feedback and hear from you what you thought of our discussion. Let us know if you have any questions or comments. You can go to sqpn.com/technology or the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. You can send an email to technology@sqpn.com or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. And links from our discussion and our picks of the week will be in our show notes at sqpn.com. Make sure to follow The Secrets of Tech in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at the StarQuest YouTube channel, where you should be sure to hit the bell to get notifications. We'd like to thank James for his research assistance on this episode. And until next time, Father Joseph Sund, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
You're welcome.
Victor Lambs, thank you as well.
Thanks, Tom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.